Believe it or not, I'm genuinely worried about making this video because it could potentially violate YouTube's new TOS. I personally think it doesn't. But then again, how can I be 100% sure? I mean, I don't have a guy at YouTube to ask them if I'm allowed to talk about this or not, and I'm not the one making the rules. You see, YouTube recently updated its terms of service in order to not allow people talk about information coming from hacked emails, which is very bizarre if you think about it. I mean, as long as the information is legit, what does it matter how it came to be? I mean, if we are to apply this logic, then you would be telling me that if a journalist would, let's say, manage to sneak on Guantanamo Bay and document some of the human rights abuses there, and then expose them to the world, then that information should be censored because the guy committed a crime when gathering the information. You know, he trespassed, or maybe he lied in order to get it or whatnot. It's just bizarre, right? So you're not allowed to talk about information coming from emails, which is not what I'm going to do in this video, which is why I don't think I'm breaking the TOS, because I'm not going to talk about the information. But I want to talk about the censorship surrounding the information. Now, if you want to find out about what I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure you can Google. I'm pretty sure you can find it out. And the story is about New York Post, which is a paper that has been functioning since the year 1800, has published an article talking about certain leaked emails regarding the candidate Biden. And now Facebook and Twitter are censoring like never before. I mean, it is insane what is happening there. And it is funny in a way because the story in itself, at least to me, it's not very shocking. I mean, it's like, yeah, you know, I guess corrupt politicians are going to be corrupt. You know, it's something that was to be expected. It's not something that revolutionizes by way of thinking. And mostly the people that read the New York Post are probably right-wingers anyway. So, you know, it's not like they would have managed to sway a lot of moderates to their side. But by censoring this, by going full on, by using the nuclear option, and censoring to a degree that I don't think, like, even with COVID, I don't think the censorship was that bad. Like, let me just tell you, it's awful, okay? They have managed to blow this story up to the point where they can't put a lid on it anymore. And here is why. Like, if all of the social media companies now would start to censor this 24/7, what would happen is that the conversation would just move elsewhere. They would move to some place where their competitors are. They might move to BitChute, they might move to Odyssey or Parler, and it will attract a lot of people because, believe it or not, people want the thing they cannot have. It's like when you're telling a teenager not to listen to goth music because it's Satan's music. You know what they're going to do? Yeah, that's right. They're going to start listening to heavy metal and think that's goth music. That's what they're going to do. Because people do not like to be treated as children. They do not like to be told, well, no, this information is harmful. You're not allowed to see it. So let me give you a timeline of the events that have transpired as I see them, right? So the New York Post releases the article. And anyone that would have clicked the link on Twitter would have been greeted by this. Notice how weaselly and scummy it is. It's like, warning, this link may be unsafe. I mean, technically it's true. Any link may be unsafe. If you play the lottery, you may win. It's such an interesting way of framing it, you know? But anyway, so they're saying that this link that you're trying to access has been identified by Twitter or their partners as being potentially spammy or unsafe in accordance to their URL policy. So they're saying that it might be spammy, it might be violent or misleading, certain categories, or malicious link. So in other words, if it's your mom who's a complete normie and doesn't understand the internet, they're going to click it and the first thing that's going to pop up is like, oh, malicious. Oh, holy shit, it's a virus. Best not click it because it's a virus. And I have seen Twitter doing this all the time with various things they do not like people reading. They will just bombard them. Hey, it might be a virus. I mean, technically it could also be spam, you know, or it could also be misleading content. But they put it in such a way, they frame it in such a way that they want people to think that if you click it, you're going to get malware on your computer. Isn't this the most scummy thing that you have ever seen? And all of it is true, by the way. Like, all of it is true. Like, it may be. Doesn't mean it is. It just means that it's perhaps. Imagine if I were to say Jack Dorsey may be a nunce. I mean, he may be. That doesn't mean he is, but he may be, right? Like, honestly, the balls on these people is astonishing. You know, like, they're using their authority as a tech company in order to spook people that aren't very tech savvy, that if they click on a link, they may get a virus on their computer. Now, most of these shenanigans went out for a couple of hours. So if you try to link to the New York Post, you'd have gotten that warning. It's like, hey, if you click it, you might get malware on your computer, it might be spam, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then you have Kyle Griffin, which is quite vocal recently, you know, telling other journalists on how to do their job. And he is a senior producer at MSNBC. Okay? And he says, no one should link or share that New York Post report. You can discuss the obvious flaws and unanswerable questions in the report without amplifying what appears to be disinformation. So we have, like, finally the arbiter of truth, the person that gets decide fact from fiction, coming up and telling other journalists not to talk about it. Like, do not link it, do not mention it, unless you're trying to debunk it, then it's fine. But like any mention, neutral or positive, not allowed. Funny how he didn't come up with the Pissgate dossier. Funny how he didn't come up with the Russiagate conspiracy. Funny how he didn't come up, you know, any time in the past when any other event has happened that ended up being false. No, like, crickets, nothing. It's just this particular one that he is interested in, right? It's just that he is very concerned about only truth being shared online and no misinformation. And he had to speak up. Okay, perfect. And you know what happens after he says this? Twitter starts banning people that mention it. Like, up until now, you would get that warning that it's probably spam. Now it's outright account suspension. And look who they suspended. The White House press secretary. And it's not only that, like, there's a huge list. I'll probably have to go through it on a live stream just to scroll down and down to see how many people have been banned. Journalists, politicians, activists, you know, random people. Ban, just by mentioning the link. It's surreal. You know, like, imagine this, just like, if you were to, let's say, use your phone to talk with people, you know, before an election or whatnot, and eventually you try to dial your mother and you would realize that the number isn't ringing and you would wonder, like, what the hell? And then you get a phone call from the phone company telling you that, hey, we noticed that you were spreading some misinformation and, you know, it's the time before the election and we don't really allow misinformation to be spread on the telephone, so we decided to suspend your number. Like, this is the madness that we're seeing. And somehow it's okay, it's fine. You know, it's perfectly fine because, oh, free speech is only about the government not infringing on blah, blah, blah. How dumb must you be to say something like that, okay? Like, as anything else that is coded into legislation, it comes from the culture. It's like the group of people, the community, needs to believe in that thing for that thing to exist. If people stop believing in free speech, if people believe that, oh no, well, we need to have a committee that gets to decide truth from fiction, blah, 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 then they will vote for politicians that represent that idea. Then free speech is gone. So when you're going to see the US president starting to say, oh, if you burn the American flag, you might go to prison, people are going to support that because they're being banned all the time in their real life. Like, what free speech are you talking about? It doesn't exist anymore. You know, like, their life is being impacted by it constantly. So when they finally get a politician on their side that's against it and is going to use censorship on the opposite faction, people are going to say, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, because you know what? Like, at the end of the day, the average Joe that gets banned from social media for posting stuff, that average Joe doesn't have any power, any sway with social media. They don't have anything to say. You know what? He does have a say in voting. He does have a say where what politician to elect. And when the left is going to cry, oh, the right is censoring us, who's going to listen? Because they don't believe in free speech. It's like, yeah, no, you just made your point. Like, oh, all of a sudden, we believe in censorship, because on social media we were told that it needs to have a council of trust and safety so people don't get to say the N-word. Because why do you need to say the N-word at the end of the day, right? Now people agree. Why do you need to say the N-word? Well, why do you need to burn the American flag? Why do you need to push for critical race theory that elevates a race upon others and says that America is evil? Why do you need to do it? You know, good question. Why do you need? Right? So like, if that's the morality that you want to push, eventually it's going to be codified in legislation because you do not believe in free speech. So eventually what ended up happening is that the House Judiciary GOP has put it on their website. They put the story on their website because Twitter was censoring the living fuck out of it. And only now, only after this blew up to a point that it cannot be managed anymore by the Twitter, Jack Dorsey steps up and starts backpedaling a little bit. And through his backtracking, I find out that not only was this censored in the public path, it was also censored in DMs. So if you were to use your private messaging in order to tell a friend about this shit, you would have been censored. And now he's like, oh, well, our communication around our actions on the New York Post article was not great. And blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking is unacceptable. So his problem wasn't with the blocking. No, the blocking is fine. Like, he should have just told you why he is like the morality behind how he is blocked. And I'll tell you why he is blocking. It's because grown-ass adults, like mature people, they're not capable. They lack the intellect to look at a piece of information and make up their own mind about what they're seeing. They need a multi-million-dollar unaccountable tech giant to tell them fact from fiction. Otherwise, how would the average Joe know what to think about things? I mean, society would collapse without Twitter's trust and safety. Really interesting. You know, it's kind of funny with how they handle this. And what I find even more bizarre, by the way, and this is that really boggles my brain. Why was it that they updated their terms of service a couple of months before, saying that information coming from hacked emails is going to not be allowed? Like, since when was that even discussed? Like, when was that even being placed to the public? And, you know, you ask the people, it's like, hey, do you think information coming from hacked email should be? No, just not anything but that. And let me get it straight, right? Let me see if my little brain, which is obviously not as smart as the experts on Twitter, but like, let me see if I get it. Let me see if I understand something. So, if the New York Times releases an article about Trump's tax returns, that is 100% correct, right? I mean, they had an anonymous source, so therefore it must be it. And that gets to stay. That gets promoted, right? If they talk about, I don't know, that an anonymous source told them that Donald Trump wasn't respectable to the military, that gets published everywhere. All right, fine. It's just that the New York Post doesn't have credibility. Yeah, they lack credibility as a publication. The entire thing, like if the New York Post tomorrow says that the grass is green, I guess Twitter Trust and Safety Council is going to go out on the window to check. Is this how it works? I find it very interesting. And again, you know, it's not that it's a mystery that these companies are doing this shit, but like what they want is to do this shit, but at the same time to have your mother and to have your father and the other normies think that they're just a platform, that they're exactly the same like the telephone company. That when something is trending on Twitter, that is legitimately trending because it's popular. And if something isn't trending, well, it's just not popular. That's what they want. That is what they want to do. They want to create the image that they're actually platforms, that they're honest actors, that they're not publishers. You know, it's not really about legislation, because here's the thing. I am willing to bet that in 5 years from now, all of these tech giants are going to advocate themselves for, Article 120 to be repealed, the one that gives them protections for being a platform. They're going to want it to be repealed, and I'll tell you why. Because they have the money to invest into technology, into AI learning, which is going to automatically ban anything from the side that they consider objectionable. And they're going to be the only ones that have the money and the technological know-how on how to do it. Meanwhile, other upstarting companies, they won't. So they don't want those companies to be considered publishers and have the legal protections, right? They want those companies to be buried by the lawsuits, by the people that are considering them to be libelous or slanderous or whatnot. You'll see if I'm not right. You will see. Just wait 2 or 3 years and you're going to see the same companies that are now not okay with this legislation being repealed, advocating for its repealing in the future. Because right now, the AI learning isn't that great. You know, it's not up to par yet. It's not capable of removing all of the negative information. But in the future, it will be. It's going to remove shit before you even post it. It's going to even realize what you're thinking before you're typing it. Because technology advances, and it's going to get to that stage. Yeah. Now, Facebook does the same. Right? Like Facebook is also deleting everything about the New York Post. I don't know what YouTube does. Again, in this video, I didn't talk about the information from the leaked emails. I didn't even touch about it. I'm only saying about the censorship. I disagree with the way it's being handled. I don't think it's normal. You know, and even if you're a leftist and you think that this is a good thing, you're going to regret this in 2 or 3 years. You're going to regret it. Eventually, you're going to have the realization that these companies do not censor for your interest. They do not censor for your good. They do not censor because they have your best interest at heart. They censor based on how they can make more money. And when they're going to start censoring people like you because you become inconvenient, when someone even further to the left than you that has some stances that even you disagree with are going to start censoring you, then you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be like J.K. Rowling's unhappy. You know, J.K. Rowling, she was advocating for censorship. She was a very progressive woman. She was saying all the correct things and had all the correct political opinions until there were people further to the left than her that disagreed with her, and now she's getting canceled. And she's just one example. I can give you an example of people working at the New York Times and whatnot. But anyway, right, it's just like, if you haven't paying attention up till now, maybe you should. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.